right? If we ask these questions about Bitcoin, then we can come to a position where we can say, well, what is it itself?
And this is, again, he's laying down the foundation. The thought processes of what a scholar would go through, before you can issue a verdict about Bitcoin. So he's being very balanced here in his approach, but more importantly, he's trying to deliver to you the understanding behind why scholars say what they say. So before we even get to give the hukum, there's this very famous principle. الحكم على شيء فرع عن تصوره. So the ruling on something is an extension of the correct perception. If you don't actually know what the thing is that you're dealing with, then it's not possible for you to actually issue a verdict. Very important principle. So again, those who didn't hear it, الحكم فرع عن تصوره. So the ruling is an extension of correct perception. So what is Bitcoin? What is it? Very important question. And also what we can understand from this is that if a scholar has not understood the situation properly, then his hukum is false. And this is why I kind of get some stick now and again when I openly reject fatwa against Bitcoin. It's not because I like Bitcoin and the fatwa says haram and because of that I'm offended. No. It's because the tasawwur, the perception that the scholar has of Bitcoin is incorrect. The understanding they put forward to the people is not true. And because of that, I reject the hukum. Listen carefully, everyone. It's a very important nuance here. Why does Muawiyah Tucker openly reject fatwa that says Bitcoin is haram? Is it because he loves Bitcoin? Is it because he wants moon money? Is that the reason? No. It's because when you look at the reasons why they say it's haram, none of the reasons reflect reality. Or they reflect some element of reality, but are biased, meaning that they also apply to fiat, or even to gold sometimes. So why would it be haram with Bitcoin and not haram with the other counterpart or the other examples of money? So that's the reason why I reject all fatwa that says haram, because I haven't seen a genuine reason to say it's haram. But that's a good point. It's a very good point. So let's just see what we can say about what Bitcoin actually is. Very important question.
It is potentially, under one view, a receipt for ownership of something, as a title is to a house, for example, at a land registry. Right, you have a document which gives evidence of ownership of a property. Right, and for tokens on the cryptocurrency system, then I think that's a fairly good analogy. A token gives you a right, utility token or an asset token to a particular, service or asset or a share in it. And I think there is generally no disagreement now among modern scholars that a receipt, a warrant, a warehouse receipt can be used to trade copper or assets of that nature.
So the issue of cryptocurrency being a receipt, is it a receipt for a real life asset? This is essentially what many scholars who have said that Bitcoin should be backed by gold, that's what they're asking for. They're saying Bitcoin should be backed by gold, therefore making Bitcoin a receipt for gold. And because it isn't backed by gold, therefore it's not really money because it's not a receipt for it. That makes sense. So how can Bitcoin be money if it's not a receipt for something in the real world? That's essentially one way to look at it. So he brings that as one understanding of or question: is Bitcoin a receipt for something in the real world? And again, my answer to this will be that this is again of a view that Bitcoin has no function or utility in itself, or better still, has no value in itself. Rather, we need to seek value outside of itself. Therefore, it being a receipt, that gives it its value. So we can see here where the mistake comes. When we perceive Bitcoin as only having value because it's tied to something in the real world with value, this is the nuance and where people stumble to understand what Bitcoin is. Because back to what I said at the very beginning of the video, they failed to understand the utility of Bitcoin. But let's continue.
This is not actually what cryptocurrency is, I think. I think we have to pass by that potential characterization and ask about a second form of characterization, which is that it is a kind of digital asset in the same way that, for example, a digital copy of my book might be an asset. It exists on a database, it's electronic, and people can buy that because it has a utility. You can use it for your benefit, and you can value it at whatever you want. If you want to pay £1,000 for it, you can. If you find prepared to sell it for £1, I can.
So the other view, or the other take to understand what Bitcoin is it an asset, like a book that has utility, that can, it's an inventory, a database, something that has utility? Again, seeking to tie this to something that we are familiar with, a book, we're familiar with a book, and a digital version of that book would be the same thing as what we understand in the book. And the benefit would be the knowledge in the book. We can read the book, we can hand the book to someone else. So you can see here, we have an issue of trying to make Bitcoin fit into a narrative we already know. But what we have to understand is that Bitcoin is absolutely new. It's not a receipt for something in the real world. We understand that in terms of paper money. It's not a digital asset that we also know, like MP3s and books. It's an entirely new thing. And trying to make it fit something previously is where we reach that stumbling block. Because again, I put forward a proposal or suggestion that the real problem here in understanding what Bitcoin is that people fail to recognize it is something that we never had before in human history, i.e., digital or ownership of information. Ownership of information, which gave us the ability to transact pure value over the internet or across long distances. When we had gold, we transferred the value by the physical transfer of the gold from hand to hand. But we've never had the ability to transfer value in terms of information and enforce that transaction through itself. I mean, I could say I wrote down, I owe you something, but how do I enforce ownership about government? We never had something that enforced ownership in and of itself. But anyway, we'll continue more what we said. But that's the point. So what I would suggest as the answer to the question of what Bitcoin is a system that allows the transfer of wealth and money, or value, I have to say, cross-border, cross-long distances, without the need for physical backing. Because its value is held within itself. Let's see.
And again, I think that's not what we're talking about here with cryptocurrency. What we seem to be looking at with the non-tokenized cryptocurrency is a database entry. Okay, and the question that we have to ask, I think, an analogy is helpful. I can say to you, look, a record on a database is a record of a thing that exists outside of the database. If I have a house, I can certainly buy and sell the record of the house, which is on an electronic database. But the thing that gives the record a value is the asset that stands behind it. I can live in a house. I can't live in a database record.
So as you can see here, Shaykh Tarek is still stuck on that stumbling block. That value is something in the real world. If I want to if I want to transact and buy something off of you, I'm going to give you gold. The value is in the physical gold. This thing is not physical, but things that are not physical could be receipts. Receipts are referencing something which is physical. We're still stuck we're in this loop. We're in this mental loop of how things used to be. And what we need to understand is that Bitcoin is something completely different. And like I said, and again, I would love someone to give me some more feedback on this if they disagree on this, but I feel that Bitcoin is the first time that we were able to enforce ownership and property and therefore transfer value without the need for backing. That wasn't possible before that. It was only, for example, gold. If I wanted to give gold to you, the way we would enforce that transaction was the fact that the gold is now in your hand. And now that you own it, you have it. And the fact that I can't make one bar of gold become 2 bars, and therefore prevent what's called a double spend issue, i.e. I have one thing spent twice. So you can prevent that by the physicality of the gold. But that was what Bitcoin solved. It solved the issue of the double spend. It allowed for information to only be spent once. If I gave Bitcoin to you, I no longer have it, and that was enforced on the blockchain. And this is the utility of Bitcoin, that if one doesn't get that point, they will always struggle. And they'll be in this forever loop. What is it? Is it gold? Is it receipt? Is it art? Is it this? It's a loop. And this is essentially where scholars who issue verdicts that Bitcoin is haram, they struggle to understand this. And my evidence for this, listen carefully to this one and all the other videos where I've discussed other scholars who discuss Bitcoin. If you listen carefully to what they say, you can even see it. When they say you lose money, money will go up, it will go down, investment, buy. What they are thinking of Bitcoin is an investment tool to get more fiat. Because in their minds, money is only dollars, pounds, reals, dirhams. This is money. Bitcoin is not money, but it's a tool to get more money. And from that aspect, they are talking about Bitcoin. That's why I describe it as Ponzi scheme, because Ponzi scheme is where you try to get money or try to get more money. Bitcoin only would be a Ponzi scheme if the idea is to get more fiat. But that's not the idea. Bitcoin is money itself. So once you've understood that, you've internalized that reality, then it becomes easy to understand everything else. But if you only see Bitcoin as a means to get more money, keep on saying phrases like, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin, I'm going to go all in, and all these words just refer to just a investment tool. I just want to make quick money, I want to make some money. This is what stops people from understanding the utility of Bitcoin. You can't overstep completely the utility of Bitcoin. And I'll give one small scenario or small metaphor. It's like a person who came to Islam just to get the war booty. So they've seen that Muslims are conquering lands and they're getting loads of war booty. They want a piece of it. So they say the Shahada, they join the army, they want to get a piece of the war booty. And they failed to even contemplate, wait, Islam is actually a religion from Allah, and it's true. Maybe I should actually be Muslim and worship Allah sincerely, so I get Jannah. If you only see Islam as the means to get war booty, then you missed it. Let's continue.
Right. We have to ask the question, is Bitcoin an electronic work of art, for example, of intellectual property, which I can buy and sell, or is it some conceptual value that exists as a record on a database?
So I think is getting close to understanding it and its true value. But again, there's certain phrases used, certain tasawwurat, certain visualization, which is, again, hindering its true understanding. Even the word entry in a database. If Bitcoin is just an entry in a database, and that's all, then the negative or the incorrect connotations of that is that there is someone who manages the database. Can I trust that individual? A decentralized ledger, I mean, it is technically a database, but it's it can give, if you think of a database as just raw, like just a database, then it can give misleading understandings. So yeah, it is a ledger, a collection of transactions, but we have to remember that no one controls that ledger. No one can dictate who can roll back transactions. I mean, it doesn't function like how banks have databases where you have list of assets, who owns what. It's not the same thing. So I'll hopefully get the gist. I don't want to spend too much on this thing.